Let's unbox the brand new Black Series 6-inch scale figure of Chewbacca from A New Hope. Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it. Hello there, thanks for visiting Varykino. I'm so excited to be unboxing a brand new Black Series figure today. This is Chewbacca from A New Hope. I wasn't expecting to find this figure, or indeed this wave, here in New Zealand so soon. We're generally a few weeks, if not a few months, behind distribution in North America, so this one was quite a surprise. We did have to hunt a few stores to find all 5 figures in the wave, but we were successful. So we have all 5 figures to unbox here on the channel. We have Night Trooper, Chewbacca, Ezra Bridger, Han Solo, and Night Sister Merrin. I've already unboxed Han Solo. I have that video linked down below. And of course, I have to get his co-pilot Chewbacca out of the packaging next. Now, of course, Chewbacca from A New Hope has been made before in the Black Series line. I have an older version, the archive version, on hand to do a side-by-side comparison because I want to see what Hasbro has improved with this newest version. It's going to be very exciting. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up really soon, I'll get Chewbacca out of the packaging. We'll go over all of the details, articulation, and side-by-side comparison. But first, let's take a really quick look at the packaging. This Black Series Chewbacca figure comes packaged in the new rectangular squared off Black Series packaging. We've got the Black Series logo at the top with the gloss effect for the Star Wars logo, a really nice big window here at the front that wraps around on that left edge, and for A New Hope we have a strong orange accent color for the stripe under the window with the text Star Wars A New Hope, and also that orange color for the character name Chewbacca. He is number 11 from the line of A New Hope figures. Moving on to the fantastic side art, we've got Chewbacca here. Now, of course, he is number 11, so he lines up very nicely alongside the other heroes from the A New Hope line. When we put them together, we get Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Chewbacca. I love the mural art. I keep my packaging. Just looks really cool, and I think Chewbacca looks nice and fierce here. He's showing his teeth. He's got his iconic bowcaster in his hand, and of course, it fades out into the orange accent color with his name there at the bottom. Moving on to the back, we've got the orange accent stripe again, number 11, a closer insert shot there of that mural art here on the back, and we also have a short blurb about the character of Chewbacca. Chewbacca is a legendary Wookiee warrior with a big heart, known for his short temper, accuracy with a bowcaster, and unwavering loyalty to his friends. Fantastic packaging, but I think this guy's going to look awesome out of the box, so let's open it up. So now I have the Chewbacca figure out of the packaging. We also have one accessory, the iconic bowcaster. It is in 2 parts, but we'll assemble that shortly. Let's take a closer look at the figure. Now, of course, I'm going to go over the details, check out the articulation, and then the accessory for some poses. I absolutely love this Chewbacca face. I mean, I like my older version of the A New Hope Chewbacca Black Series figure, but this is just night and day. Something that is so distinctive about Chewbacca is the fact that you can see the Wookiee performer Peter Mayhew's eyes in the mask, and he has distinctive blue eyes, and you can see that they have replicated that on this figure. Something that is just absolutely fantastic about the modern era of that photorealistic digital printing. You can get the tiniest details. It's so hard to see, but it just makes such a difference. You can see the blue and it looks like human eyes there. There is a really nice nose detail there. The painting around the mouth is not as tidy. I can see just a little bit of pink on one of the teeth, but that is very small. I can kind of give them a pass on that one. I do like the pose on the mouth. It's not too fierce, not too sort of menacing, just a little bit open. I think that it kind of reminds me of some promotional images. You know, it just looks like a really good expression for Chewbacca. I always think of him as, you know, not too ferocious. He does roar a few times in A New Hope, but I like this expression. We've got a little bit, just a subtle sculpting kind of around, kind of giving him eyebrows as well, which I quite like. And we've even got just a little bit of a darker paintwork around sort of the mustache area, because he does have a slightly darker fur there, which is really nice. And of course, we've got that lighter fur on the face, trailing down here over the chest, and then it kind of fades out to the darker color in the back, which is really nice. Not too much of a hard line there. I really like that fade into the darker color there. And of course, I think this looks like a really good color match for Chewbacca as well. In some shots and some lights, it's almost an orange, not a dark brown, and I think that this is a really good color. Of course, we've got the darker colors coming in around the top of the arms, across the chest, the shoulders, and on the legs there as well. So apart from the paintwork on the face, we've got a few other elements, namely on the bandolier. We've got fantastic metallic paint here for the ammo pouches, and all of the little studs in between are also painted, which is nice to see, and also on the back as well. Hasbro hasn't skipped any of the studs. This is looking nice and tidy. We've got the metallic rings here as well. They are not hollow. There is no hole in the middle of this ring. It is filled in, I guess, to preserve the integrity of the plastic strap. If that was cut out, then these would be very, very small and prone to breaking, so I can understand that. But I do see that on these straps hanging down from the satchel section, we have little buckles sculpted on the straps, and sadly they are not painted. They should be a metallic silver, because of course buckles are not going to be the same color as the leather. I do like the sculpting of the satchel. It's very thin, hangs very tightly close to the body. It's got a little bit of a curve to it. We can see there on the underside, so it hugs nice and close to Chewbacca's leg there, but it's just a shame that we just don't have those little details. Won't be too visible when viewed from the front, but if you're going to be posing him from the side, it does just kind of catch my eye every now and again there. Something that I did notice taking him out of the box straight away, this bandolier is attached to the figure. It is not a removable accessory. Earlier versions, you could slip it off his shoulder quite easily. This one appears to be pegged or attached in at least two places. You can see that it is pegged here because I can't lift it off, and we have the same on the front. It is attached here. I'm not sure if there is attachment over the shoulder, because I feel like I can kind of wiggle this a little bit. There might be something under there, but I can at least wiggle it, but we are fixed here and here. If I lift it at the front, I can see sort of a bit of a sculpted channel. So if you were to remove it or cut it off, you're going to be left with a little bit of an indent where this is designed to kind of sit into the sculpting of the fur. So I don't really know that it would be worth trying to remove this to customize this figure. And certainly you can't swap the bandolier with one from an older figure. It's just not really going to work. Certainly not for me. I'm not that brave. And so I can see some differences with the sculpting, because of course for this figure, of course, Hasbro has made Chewbacca many times, but they have recently tackled two very unique Wookiee characters. Chrysanthemum from the Book of Boba Fett, that big bulky Wookiee, and then of course we have Kalnaka from the Acolyte. And especially with Kalnaka, Hasbro improved on Wookiee sculpting and articulation, and they really wanted to bring that knowledge and improve on Chewbacca. So it's going to be really interesting to compare this alongside an older one, but I can see a few differences. We've only got one articulation point through the chest here, but I have to say the fur is longer and just everywhere. It's just longer and sort of hanging over all of the joints. The articulation is really hidden. I can see it here in the front, but we've got just really long fur. Look at the hands. It's really hanging down, which is really fun. So of course we've got the paint on the face, the bandolier. We've got gray on the underside of the hands for the palms and the fingers, and for the toes and the underside of the feet. I wouldn't expect there to be paint flaws or issues with those areas. Fairly standard stuff there. Looking at the rest of the body, of course, we've got the darker areas on the head, around the shoulders and around the thighs down to the knees, but there isn't a wash or anything that I can discern over the rest of the fur. It just looks like it is the plastic color with this darker painted sections over the top. I don't see any highlights or washes. I do like the fact that on the face, it doesn't look it looks like there's maybe a little bit of airbrushing or a wash or something over the face, because it looks just a little bit more toned down than the sort of the cleaner sections where sort of this like on the hands, it looks more sort of brighter. It's just a little bit more muted around the face. And of course, we've got the sculpting just to kind of really give that expression on the figure. It's looking really nice. The fur is, it's not prickly, but I can feel just sort of all of the little flicks and sort of tendrils of hair hanging out. It does have just a little bit of wiggle, so it's not going to snap off if he topples because he is a taller figure. But I do wonder, I'm just really keen to check out the articulation, because I do wonder, with all of this long hair, am I still going to be able to pose him? He's not an acrobatic character per se. We're not going to be doing sort of big flips or, you know, acrobatic lightsaber poses with Chewbacca, but he does some interesting moves. And of course, we do want to pose our figures in a fun way. Because the fur is hanging down so low, I do see that they have done a split up the sides, which is not my favorite thing on these figures. I'm always worried about creating a further split and then you kind of rip the plastic. But of course, with the fur hanging down lower over the hips and onto the thighs, we're going to need just that little bit of flexibility. But I have to say, this is not flexible, this section here. It's not like a thin plastic tunic or a sort of robe that hangs down like on, say, the Imperial officers, where you've got the tunic coming down to the thigh, and so they have the split up the side to allow it to flex. This is still quite rigid. I'm not sure that this is really going to give us that much more flexibility, having this split. And looking up here, we don't have a cut through for a thigh swivel. Personally, I tend to side a little bit more on accuracy over articulation. I want my figures to pose, but generally they're standing up straight. I don't use the thigh swivel much, but it's interesting that they have eliminated this for the sake of the sculpting of the fur, so we don't have that. We do, of course, have the sort of rotation at the knees. It's going to be very interesting to see how well this one moves. I got to say, I like being able to pose him without the bandolier falling off. That was always something that just a little bit tricky, trying to pose the older figure. The bandolier always wanted to slip off. So let's get stuck in and check out the articulation. So he's got a lot of fur hanging down around his shoulders, so I'm not sure how much we're really going to get. I can actually tip that back a little bit further than I thought. You can see the rotation there. Not too much to the side, and we do start to get a little bit of a weird gap under here, which is to be expected, of course. We do get a little bit more turning side to side than perhaps I would have expected. Of course, we are hitting the bandolier on this side. We can turn it a little bit more to the other side there. Yeah, I think he's kind of loosening up. I feel like I can sort of wiggle him around a little bit more than I was expecting there. That's actually pretty reasonable. Definitely kind of loosening up. Fresh out of the box, sometimes they can be a little bit stiff. Okay, so let's see how well his arms come up. So you can get to that position. Let's see how well they're going to swivel around. Of course, his left arm's going to be a bit different to his right because we've got the bandolier over the shoulder. A little bit different there. A little bit of a wider angle here, a little bit closer into the neck, but I'm probably not going to be utilizing that pose, but we can get his arms all the way up. I do like how close to the body that his arms can actually hang in a sort of the neutral position, but without sort of compromising too much fluff in terms of the sculpting. A little bit flatter here under the arms. It's kind of a little bit more hollow in there just to get the arms to sort of really lay flat, but it doesn't look too odd when I put his arms up. Let's test out the elbows. Oh, nice and easy. Was a little bit curious about how that was going to work. Let's see. Yeah, we can go all the way up. So we've got the hair sort of hanging down here in the back. Pretty good. Of course, the hair is kind of defying gravity a little bit here. It's kind of still sticking straight up. It would hang a little bit, but we can see the fur there. Works pretty well if we're keeping it in more of a horizontal position. It's kind of angled, so it kind of looks like it's traveling in the right direction. But if we're going to put his hand up, it starts to look perhaps a little bit funny. But of course, it's plastic. I like this just works. It's nice. We're not getting too much side to side, I have to say, because of now we've kind of got this bit of a sort of a extra bit here on the outer side of the elbow, so I can't really rotate his arm out because I'm hitting this section here, but I can sort of rotate it in a little bit because of course we need a good bowcaster pose that we'll be testing out shortly. Kind of impressed with the articulation here. That's quite nice. Again, same sort of thing here. The plastic for the fur is going to sort of impact in a few spots, but I can get a reasonable wiggle there. That's actually fairly nice. Okay, now the hands. This is going to be interesting because we've got all of this extra fur, and hopefully I can sort of show that. Okay, so looking close, it's hard to see what the articulation is like in terms of the attachment point, but of course I can rotate his hands around and getting a little bit of a wiggle. I'm not sure if there's a ball joint or sort of like one of those ones where they can rock side to side, because I can move it around a little bit, and same on the other hand, can kind of move it away from the plastic. It's going to take a little bit of experimentation, I think, because the joint is so deep in the wrist covered by all this fur. I generally like to see the articulation when I'm moving it, so I know I can kind of see where the sort of the end point is, so I'm not going to try and wrench it beyond where it's supposed to go. It's buried so deep in there, I'm just kind of doing just really subtle movements because I don't want to wrench the hand out. It's so deep in there, if something was to break, that's going to be very hard to put back in there. So of course the Bandelier is going to be interesting to see if I can really move this torso section. He kind of feels rubbery when I grab him like this. That's very interesting. He didn't actually feel that rubbery when I was sort of holding him down here. This top section feels kind of not squishy, but it is more flexible than I was expecting. I can just kind of get the plastic to kind of move there under his arm on that side. He is very tight, I have to say. I'm not really getting that much side to side movement here. That's very, very tight. It does, oh, he's got a click. You might have been able to hear that. He's got a bit of a click movement. He's not as smooth. I have to say the brand new Han Solo, very nice through his waist joint. I was able to move that one around. This one is tight. Not a lot front and back at that section because I think the joint is pretty well hidden underneath all of this fur. Not a lot of torso movement. That's very, very tight. Very tight. And I don't like fighting with my figures. If it feels like I don't really know where the stopping point is, I'm not going to stress it beyond that point. Very interesting that we don't have another point sort of visible in the torso. It's all underneath. So yeah, that's it. Okay, let's move on to the legs. So moving. We are getting a little bit of restriction here with that plastic fur down the side. That's about as wide as I really want to stress before I start pulling this too wide because I don't want to split it. It's quite thick, so I don't think I'm really at too much of a risk of a split, not like the Imperial Officer tunics. But you can see the articulation there in the hips. It's a little bit limited. It's a shame. The Han Solo can do quite a much wider sort of leg position. We don't really see Chewbacca riding a dewback or even a tauntaun, so I don't really need this figure to straddle anything. But yes, because of his fur hanging down lower, we are a little bit more restricted in the width there with the legs. We don't have a thigh swivel. We have a little bit of a wiggle here at the top of the thighs. Instead, I can kind of wiggle that around a little bit. Check out the knees. Oh, very easy with the knees. I thought they'd be tighter. We can get quite a deep angle with the knees. You can see the sort of the shiny articulation exposed there on the knees, but it is actually sort of cut high here in the back of the knee, so he can actually fold down. So you could get him sort of perhaps imprisoned in a different pose there. I thought they would be a lot stiffer, and we can also rotate at the knees as well. Gotta say, the fur is looking pretty good when I'm moving it around. It's just through the torso that I'm finding restrictions there. So you can just see the articulation for the ankle tucked in there under the fur. I can rock the foot back, but of course the fur is coming all the way down in the back, so that's stopping there. I can rock his foot up a little bit because we've got a little bit of sort of a raised hem there, and we've got the ability to sort of roll around side to side a little bit there as well for a little bit of adjustment. I like being able to adjust the ankles just to give that little bit of stability if you need to just adjust them to get them to stand up straight there. So I wouldn't say that this is like crazy articulated. I'm sure when I do the comparison that I'll notice a lot of differences with the older one. For me, it's just, I see the big improvement with the detail and the sculpting. He looks more like a hairy Wookiee, which is really nice. The longer and deeper sculpting on the fur. The color looks great. I'm really liking the eyes. Interesting that the bandolier is fixed in place, but for a collector like myself, I don't like losing accessories, and it's easier to pose him when that's not sliding off. I know it's going to be in place, and to be honest, he doesn't really swap out his look too much as we see it in the film. So I think he's looking great. He's tall, he's very steady because of course they've got the big Wookiee feet. I've played around with his articulation and he's still standing up very nicely, but I'm just going to lay him back here in the background because we've got his accessory. So of course we've got Chewbacca's bowcaster, and the first thing I noticed when I got this one out of the packaging is it is rubbery, the whole thing, including this section as well. You can see I can bend this. Now I was not expecting it to be this rubbery. The bowcaster on the Chewbacca figures I have from before this figure, they are rigid, and if you look at this one, we've got quite a bend here, which is the reason I don't like this flexible plastic. I know it is heartbreaking if you happen to snap or break a Black Series accessory, especially something unique like Chewbacca's bowcaster, but this isn't fun. And I know you can do the hot water trick to try and sort of form the plastic, but you shouldn't have to be doing that. And this has a strap. The archive one I have does not have a strap on the bowcaster, and you can see this tiny little attachment point. I am really worried that that is going to snap. Even just with this little wiggling, you can kind of create a bit of sort of stress creases in this sort of rubbery plastic. I know if this was rigid plastic, that might snap more easily, but I'm going to be very, very careful about that. Again, we have a buckle that is sculpted and not painted with a metallic paint. That is just a little bit of annoyance there, but we do have this nice leather texture on the strap. It kind of looks like creased aged leather that I can see along the strap there. It isn't removable, it's all part of this. It is painted, so it at least is a different color to the actual sort of supposed to be metal section here of the bowcaster, but you can just kind of see if I'm holding it up against the background, it is just bent. We've got this big bend going this way so that the scopes don't look straight. The scopes themselves, this one has a little bit of a curve to it. It's going to take a lot of tweaking to get this to kind of look straight. And I know that once I get it into his hands, that might be a very different thing. We've got a trigger guard, but to be honest, that is so small. Chewbacca's fingers are not going in this little trigger guard. I think we're just going to get him to grip around here. I'm hoping that's not going to be too tricky. And of course, we've got two parts. This one joins up together in a very different manner to the original one that I have. It kind of just sort of pegs on the front. I was always trying to make sure that I had it on the right way. This one has a slot here in the front, and it's going to slot into this section here. So hopefully this is going to go together and look relatively secure and straight, just kind of pressing it in there. And now we have his bowcaster assembled. I am a little bit nervous about putting this in his hand. Sometimes the rubbery, kind of slightly flexible accessories go into their hands because you're not worried about snapping them. But I am a little bit worried about this strap because that is a very small attachment point, and I really, really don't want to break it because it is just so prominent at the front of this accessory. So the actual bowcaster itself doesn't have any metallic weathering or any accents accent paint. It is just in this dark grey plastic. It appears to be just painted on this strap. That's all there is. So gotta say, loving the figure, not so fond of the accessory so far, but of course if you've got another Chewbacca figure, you can easily swap out the bowcaster accessory because it's not attached to him. So if you have a preference, should be an easy swap. So I have no idea how well this is going to go into his hand because of course we've got this extra kind of grip here in the back. So I'll give it a bit of a go and see how easily I can get this into his hand. And oh, okay, it's snapped into place. So yes, the trigger guard is resting just in front of his thumb, but he's actually gripping onto that fairly nicely. That held on well. You can see that that is tucked into his elbow. It's still looking a little bit wobbly though. This bit is looking a little bit curved, and this looks like bent metal. It's just dipping down. I'm not really sure I'm a fan of that. I would have preferred a bit more of a rigid plastic for the accessory, but I can kind of get him into a pose there so we can see what he would be looking like. The strap does kind of look cool. I'm just very nervous about this. It's certainly not the sort of thing that you can put into a Ziploc bag and just sort of think about it later. I would be treating this one very, very carefully. He looks cool. He looks cool. I just not a fan of the bendy plastic. It's a little bit of a shame. You know, there's always like the highs and the lows with each figure unboxing, isn't there? There's something that you just absolutely love, and then sometimes there's just oh, I just wish like the buckles not being painted here and the rubbery plastic, but overall he's looking great. Okay, let's grab my archive, A New Hope Chewbacca, and see what is different with this new version. So now I have my older archive version of Chewbacca from A New Hope here on the left, and the newest release here on the right. And of course the leg position will change the heights a little bit, but you can see that there is a height difference between the two figures. Grabbing my ruler, you can see the heights of the figures here in centimeters, and this one here is the measurement in inches. Quite a difference, very interesting. Now of course they did improve the sculpting and articulation of the figure, but let's see how that really does affect the posing. When I was putting the bowcaster in this figure's hand, the fluff around the elbow here is stopping this forearm from coming up any tighter. So it kind of gives this sort of horizontal area here to the forearm because I can't make it any tighter. When it comes to the newer figure, the sculpting around the arm, it means I can get this very tight angle here, so you get different poses. Of course, we can see just a little bit of a difference between the two accessories. This one is the harder plastic. It's rigid, so we get fine detail, and the dark plastic also has a metallic brush finish, which just gives it a really nice sort of gunmetal, realistic looking finish to it. This one is that rubbery dark plastic, no painting effects, and it is a little bit wobbly in sections. Though of course we do have the strap on this one, though as you can see when he's holding it up high, the strap's not going to hang in a particularly sort of realistic manner with gravity. It should hang a little bit, but if he's holding it horizontal, it would look pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and take the bowcaster accessories out of each figure's hands so we can take a closer look at the details of each figure, because I'm already seeing a lot of differences. With the two Chewbacca figures side by side, as well as the height, there is an obvious color difference. This one is a little bit more of a chocolate brown, I think, dark brown. We've still got the darker colors over the shoulders, across the chest, and at the top of the thighs. Not so much here in the back of the hair. We've got a little bit of an effect there, and not much across the back of the shoulders either. Taking a look at the newer one, I think the color on this one reads a lot more accurate to Chewbacca. That slightly more sort of lighter, nearly an orange brown there. We've got some fantastic fading here into the darker color on the back of the head. We've got the dark color across the back of the shoulders that we didn't really get on this version here. You can see the darker color coming a lot further down on the back of the legs here as well. We got a little bit of paint work on this one, but not as much. This one does have a little bit of a wash to kind of accent the highlights on the lighter patches of fur. This one doesn't, but I don't know that it necessarily needs it quite as much, because taking a look at these figures, especially when you look at them a little bit closer up, just the depth of the sculpting on this figure is a lot deeper. It's just a lot more sort of textured. We've got deeper sort of carving in the fur, especially on places like the arms, the shoulders especially. If I put these two side by side, you can kind of see you've got the fur texture sculpted here, but it's very sort of flat when we compare it. This one's got sort of peaks and little spike flicks of hair coming out of it, and just the length of fur around the hands here as well. A lot more separation in sections there as well. We've got all of these little friends here around the fingers. This one is kind of a little bit more globby. It's like he's got mud in his fur. It's all kind of stuck together. So I'm really liking the definition on the fur. This one has that one articulation point through the torso. This one we have a cut here and here as well. We also have a thigh swivel there as well. But of course the thigh swivel is a little cutting through with the fur. It's very exposed here as well. This one, the fur is coming down and kind of covering a little bit more, which I like. You can kind of see how deep in between the legs that fur is coming, and especially here in the back here as well. It's just kind of covering, hanging down a little bit more. Now, taking a look at the sculpting of each individual piece, the feet are the same, the way that the fur hangs over the toes. Of course, the painting is different because we've got the different colors, but all of the different pieces that I can see, the shoulders, torso, legs, arms, all of that is different, which is just incredible. We know that Hasbro does reuse parts where appropriate, or perhaps even not so appropriate, but it's really fun to see just the huge change that they have done. Even the bandelier is different. With this one, we've got different details here. We've got a single button. This one kind of has a little bit of a ring, and the actual satchel is very different. This one did have painted buckles there and a gap in the ring, whereas this one does not have painted buckles and a filled in ring for strength. But the satchel on this one is much thicker. This one is very flat, sits very nicely against the body. I guess it's going to be personal preference. This one does kind of tuck in under the neck fur here, but you can remove it. Sometimes it would sort of fall off when I was trying to get the bowcaster into his hands, so that was always a little bit of a mission there. You can see that on this one, we did have that kind of groove there for it to sit in there, and you can see some of that sort of a highlighting on the fur, trying to sort of bring out detail, whereas on this figure, we don't really have any of that sort of extra painting to highlight it because we've just got deeper channels. The shadows are kind of doing the work there for us. I don't know how many people will sort of really miss the weathering on the fur. In certain sections, it almost gave him a little bit of more of a sort of a grubbier look. I like the fact that it kind of brought out some detail, but I do like this one. And of course, I think the biggest difference that we have to talk about is the faces. We've got very different just facial expressions. He is roaring here, mouth wide open. He has a little bit more of a neutral expression for this figure, but you can see in the older one, we just have the white eyes with the dot and a black nose. We have a little bit of kind of an eyebrow shape, not really much of a mustache. We've kind of got a bit of a chin sculpting there, and the paintwork fading into the black, the darker color here in the back is just a little bit mixed. It's a little bit mottled. We've got a little bit of a darker color, but it doesn't really have a proper gradient. Whereas on this figure, we've got that fantastic gradient where it looks like the fur is kind of being combed over into the darker fur, and just the detail around the eyes. Such a stark difference, and you don't really see that in the promotional images. This looks cool. I thought this guy looked cool, but seeing them side by side, that is just incredible how different they look. This one's giving me sort of like, you know, just the smooth head of the original vintage Kenner one, and just kind of this more simpler paint job around the eyes and the mouth. This one looks like there's a person inside with those eyes. Just incredible. Really, really cool. Not sure how I feel about the articulation through the torso. This one has, you know, a lot more sort of movement because we've got two extra points box there compared to just the one of this one. But to be honest, I'm not really utilizing the articulation through the torso. I tend to stand my Chewbacca mostly upright. And there was something about the plastic overall on this one that has a funny sort of almost like a hard plastic gloss to it that the weathering didn't really take off. This one, because it is slightly more flexible, has a slightly more of a matte finish to it rather than the gloss that I can see, especially around the face. This one has more of a matte finish because of that slightly more flexible plastic, which gives it less of a hard plastic toy feel. I know we're not going to get fur and sort of realistic, you know, it's not going to look like fur up close, but just the fine details when I look at the hair here versus the hair sculpting on this one, it looks so much more like a miniature version of Chewbacca, which is of course what we're really wanting from our Black Series toys. This one's Bandelier is sliding off the shoulders there. Absolutely fantastic. I will put more photos up of sort of close-up details side by side so you can really see the way that these look just so different. I love this figure, but of course it does matter how he looks alongside Han Solo as well. So of course I recently opened up the brand new Han Solo figure that came out in the same wave as this Chewbacca. So of course heights for figures is very important. This one kind of really towers over Han Solo. I feel like this one is a better match for the Han, and especially when we've got the really nice modern face printing and sculpting on this brand new Han Solo. This one looks like it's almost from a different product line because of just the slightly different styling for the sculpting, and certainly the printing and painting around the face looks very different. This one is a very nice match, and I really like the fact that they had both of these figures in the same assortment together because they really need to be beside each other. I think it's really great. I didn't have a Han Solo, so I knew I was really going to want him, but I really wanted the new Chewbacca because I'd heard so much about the improvements over the older one, and I think that this just looks fantastic. You can really see the differences when I get them all together, and these guys look absolutely fantastic. It is a shame that for us here in New Zealand, at least, I'm not sure how the assortments will work in other countries, but for us here in New Zealand, when the boxes hit the store shelves, they are in cases of 6, and Merrin is the figure that there are 2 of. So each of the boxes only had 1 Han and 1 Chewbacca. So it's definitely been a race to secure these. Certainly here in New Zealand, we did have to hunt around quite a few stores to track these 2 down because they're just so iconic and such fantastic figures of these characters. You know, A New Hope, just the classic duo. They look really, really cool. I'm a little bit on the fence about the rubbery bowcaster. I think that's the one thing that lets it down. But if you've ever broken an accessory from your figure, you might appreciate the rubbery feeling. And I know that the bend on mine is specific to mine. You may luck out a little bit better than me and have a perfectly fine bowcaster. And of course, if you own an older one, you can swap in the accessory if you just prefer the older one with the weathering on it already. But this has been so much fun. I loved opening him up, but it is really seeing him side by side with an older one that really sells this figure for me. He's just so much cooler. I think this figure is just absolutely fantastic. This was so much fun. I've been looking forward to really seeing these out of their box and together, and they just look amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today as I opened up the brand new Black Series Chewbacca figure from A New Hope. I had so much fun checking out all of the details. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you're a Black Series fan, I've also recently unboxed the Han Solo figure from the same wave. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole Black Series unboxing playlist. This is the way.